On this edition of Jackie Collins Presents, you'll get a backstage pass inside the bedroom doors of the most famous divorces in Hollywood history.
To the Hollywood set, divorce isn't nearly as taboo as it is for the rest of us.
Every time I got married or I got engaged, I'm engaged now, I believe it should be forever.
That's right. We're uncovering everything from the who's who's list of who's had the biggest knockdown drag-out fights.
Kim Basinger and Alec Baldwin had an especially nasty breakup because there was a daughter at stake.
It's not easy. It's not easy.
From the scandalous reasons some superstar brides get married for a minute.
God bless Brittany and Jason Alexander. They knew when to call it quits. 56 hours would have been pushing it. It really would have been.
Don't tell my mom that.
To the real reasons certain star-studded power couples seem to explode from their own inner wattage.
Eric Benet has admitted himself that being with Halle Berry, being such a big star, was very difficult for him to deal with.
It was the year of Halle when I captured this guy right here.
Plus, how to execute the perfect showbiz separation just in case you become the next box office sensation. Welcome to Jackie Collins Presents Divorced Women. We're here at the fabulous Ritz-Carlton Huntington Hotel and Spa. You know, no matter where you come from, divorce is hard. But under the white-hot lights of Hollywood, divorce is hell. Believe me, I could write a book about all the marital mayhem I've witnessed over the years. Oh, that's right, I already have. Well, since I'm not one to repeat gossip, pay attention or press record now, because the facts presented over the next hour may just save your marriage. Starting with our first chapter entitled, What Went Wrong?
I think getting married is a big highlight.
I'm staying home with Billy while he goes on tour.
When I asked her to marry me that day, we had a beautiful sunset.
In Hollywood, lust is always working overtime. Everywhere you look, some big star has fallen in love, but often those red-hot romances fizzle as quickly as they fire up, and a lifelong commitment turns into short-term marriage.
Congratulations on the marriage.
Yeah, thanks.
Perhaps the problem is the people in this town are so passionate, they dive into relationships head first without thinking about the consequences. My advice, take a long look before you leap.
People get married quickly in Hollywood because they fall in love quickly. These people, they have different kind of jobs. And let's face it, they live their lives in a different kind of way.
In general, when marriages are short-lived like this, it's because people can't tolerate intimacy. They just can't do it. They can't sustain it.
And the latest example of quick Hollywood splits is Nikki Hilton. She surprised everyone when she flew off to Vegas and married money manager Todd Meister in August of this year.
How's married life treating you? And congratulations, by the way.
Thank you, it's great.
Great and oh so brief. After only 2 months, Ms. Hilton was reportedly seeking an annulment from her new husband. Now, when you can count your marriage in hours instead of years, you know you're going to find yourself on my list. Presenting the queen of the quickie marriage, Britney Spears.
Britney Spears' marriage to Jason Alexander is probably the most impulsive decision to get married in the history of Hollywood.
Don't tell my mom that.
She literally is at the Palms Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas with her friend from growing up, Jason, and she just decides after midnight, wouldn't it be cool to go and get married? They go to the chapel, a couple minutes later, they're husband and wife. Problem is, really bad idea. So 55 hours later, she moves on.
God bless Brittany and Jason Alexander. They knew when to call it quits. 56 hours would have been pushing it. It really would have been.
I wouldn't say I'm completely grown up, but I'm getting there.
I've heard of speed dating, but a speed marriage?
Luckily, she was able to annul it. If she didn't, she'd be a very poor woman today.
Ah, rich is the woman who has love, or a good divorce attorney. My advice to Britney, stick with your new husband and save your money. Now, when it comes to spur-of-the-moment marriages, Britney's seems downright traditional compared to Drew Barrymore's doomed first marriage to LA bar owner Jeremy Thomas.
Drew Barrymore is a very, very passionate person, and she falls in and out of love very quickly.
Quickly, indeed.
Her marriage to Jeremy Thomas was just classic impulse decision. It was like buying a pack of gum, and it lasted basically a month.
And, like a piece of gum, the marriage lost its flavor.
The heart
is incredibly resilient.
Unfortunately, her marriages don't seem to have the same resiliency as Tom Green found out when he said, "I do" to Drew.
Drew Barrymore's marriage to Tom Green, it lasted 5 months.
At the ceremony, Courtney Love comes up to Tom and she's like, "Oh, good luck with this one if it lasts." And he was like, "Gee, that's weird. Why would Courtney Love say that to me?"
I think they had a lot of fun together, but I think what happened was when they moved in together, they just realized that it wasn't so much fun anymore, that there really wasn't much depth to the relationship.
And within a few months, Drew was trying to take vacations without him, and that's when he kind of realized, I guess this isn't gonna work.
Which brings us to J-Lo. When it comes to short-lived marriages, Jen has been around the block a few times. She met her first husband, model Ohani Noah, in 1996, while he was working as a waiter in Gloria Estefan's Miami restaurant. Clearly, Jennifer liked what he was serving.
I just got married, been married a month and 4 days.
She was with Ohani Noah for a year, and that's usually a very short relationship.
It's tough. It's tough because not only was it my first year of marriage, it was like my first year of celebrity. And so that was weird because I'm getting used to it, and then there's also somebody else who didn't bargain for it. So it's been a rough ride for us, but it's okay.
By 1998, the marriage was over, so Jennifer paid her tab, and it was off to the next relationship.
J-Lo and Chris Judd, you know, he went from being a dancer in the background of one of her videos to being her husband. That could work, except that he was a dancer in the background of one of the videos.
She was coming off the heels of a very crazy relationship with P. Diddy. Chris Judd was a normal, quiet, unassuming guy, and she needed that.
I just haven't quite found the balance to be able to pursue what I love passionately and still have a life. You know what I mean?
A few more marriages, and Jennifer Lopez is going to overtake Elizabeth Taylor as the greatest marriage train wreck in the history of Hollywood.
Let's not be too hard on Jennifer. With her kind of talent and star wattage, it's hard not to outshine your partner unless his star burns as brightly as yours.
Hopefully she's found the permanent man for her, but of course even with Mark Anthony, because of her past, you have to have your doubts.
Not me. I think this time it's for keeps. After a 2-week whirlwind romance, 23-year-old Shannen Doherty took 19-year-old Ashley Hamilton as her lawfully wedded husband. But 7 months later, he was her lawfully unwedded ex.
When you factor in the kind of guys that she's trying to date, it doesn't surprise me that it's one disaster after another.
It's gonna be resolved.
And when you've got a personal life as interesting as Shannon's, the last thing you need is another challenging marriage to complicate things.
You have this guy, Rick Solomon. She married him, she divorced him, she dated him, they broke up, they got back together. These are not healthy relationships. They end in divorce.
But in all fairness, it does take two to rock and roll.
Shannen Doherty is known as being very temperamental and a difficult person to work with. And so judging by how short her marriages are, I would think it'd be safe to say she's temperamental and probably difficult to be married to.
No one ever said marriage was easy. And sometimes a successful career can result in a failed relationship.
Hollywood couples where the woman has more power and more celebrity and more money than the man have a real difficult time lasting because there's no bigger male ego than the Hollywood male ego.
In 2003, Halle Berry had everything you'd expect from a Hollywood star: beauty, talent, an Academy Award, and a husband with a wondering eye.
It was the year of Halle when I captured this guy right here.
Halle Berry has a reputation for marrying guys who don't treat her as well as she should be treated. And that pattern repeated itself when she married Eric Benet.
Eric Benet has admitted himself that being with Halle Berry, being such a big star, was very difficult for him to deal with.
I flew into California with Eric Benet the night before the Oscars when she won. He was very sweet. He was really very concerned about her. He said, I have to hold her hand. Unfortunately, he was holding other parts of other ladies at the same time, which is a really bad habit to have.
Beautiful Uma Thurman and brooding Ethan Hawke were both making names for themselves when they first hooked up. But when you're a young Hollywood couple climbing the ladder of success, you better be careful. Those rungs can get slippery.
Uma Thurman and Ethan Hawke are a great example of a couple who were constantly on uneven footing in terms of power struggling.
Uma Thurman and Ethan Hawke were both stars in their own right, and Uma took a more commercial path and really became more of a celebrity in the classic Hollywood sense.
It doesn't matter if you shot Uma with a toy camera or a 35mm camera or an IMAX camera. When you photograph her, for some reason, it's cinema, you know, it's poetry.
She became Quentin Tarantino's muse. She was away from him for long periods of time shooting both volumes of Kill Bill. Next thing you know, he's up in Canada, he's shooting a movie. He allegedly cheats on Uma.
Ethan never admitted to cheating on Uma, but obviously it wasn't a perfect union.
He insists after the fact that there were cracks in the marriage before that.
And when you're on location and away from each other for long periods of time, those cracks can turn into a major split. The couple separated soon after.
Uma took the high road. Uma was glamorous and ethereal and beautiful and handled everything with aplomb.
I'm a big girl, take my knocks like any other woman, and I'm very happy and carrying on.
It's a classic Hollywood story. Boy meets girl, boy marries girl. Girl gets hit TV series. Oh, let's just call it the Jennifer Garner-Scott Foley story.
Jennifer Garner and Scott Foley were both at the same level of fame when they met.
He had a regular gig on Felicity. She came on for a little guest spot. She was no one, and he began dating her at that time. They were married before she even really became famous.
And then Jennifer Garner blew up.
Watching her be fulfilled makes me extremely proud and happy.
He really wanted to be married. He really wanted to be newlyweds. He was really, really in love with her, and he wanted to shop for their house and play with their dogs and do fun things, and she was really busy.
I know, we're kind of like, what's going on at our house?
And when you're both working actors, making the transition from movie set to spending a quiet night at home can be, well, confusing.
Understand, these people are serviced like a racing car when they're on a set. They want coffee, they want makeup, they want licorice sticks. They want anything, they get it. They go home, they expect the same thing of their mates.
Time is always an issue when you're working as much as she is. But we've come to grips with it, you know, and it is what it is, and it's not going to last forever.
Truer words were never spoken. The couple parted ways in 2003. Believe me, it can be cold living in the shadow of a superstar, which leaves you with two choices: freeze to death, or do like Nicole Kidman and turn up the heat.
When Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman first got together, she was this little girl from Australia who was just starting to make it here, and he was a huge superstar.
But Nicole wasn't content living in the shadow of her heartthrob husband. She made a name for herself, and it wasn't Mrs. Tom Cruise.
As time went on, Nicole became more and more and more famous. And there became a point where Nicole was just a superstar.
And a mother and a wife. And she had to act out these roles under a glaring spotlight.
I've said before that I was part of a very public relationship, and I'm not ever willing to do that again.
Although their marriage ended after 10 years, you might say the divorce was a success. They kept the details quiet, and both emerged unscathed with their reputations intact, and most important, still friends. It's one thing when a couple's relationship is overshadowed by their own fame, but when their marriage is overshadowed by their eccentric behavior, you've got a whole new set of problems.
Angelina Jolie and Billy Bob, in their own weird way, were a match made in heaven for the time being. He left Laura Dern, who he was living with at the time, to shack up with Angelina. They got married quickly. They got their names tattooed on each other. They talked about their wild sex escapades. They shared blood.
Saying they had sex in their car on the way to an award show, to just her saying that she was fully obsessed with him and she couldn't sleep or eat when he didn't call her.
But trouble was waiting to happen in their peculiar paradise.
It started to unravel when Billy Bob decided that he wanted to pursue his music career, and he started traveling. And it was when Angelina started to grow up and become a mature, responsible adult that the relationship really fell apart.
You know what I like to call it? Technical difficulties.
It kind of doesn't even surprise you because they were just insane together. They were crazy.
Let those stories be lessons of what not to do the next time you say, I do. And straight ahead, an intimate look at the big-name brides who change husbands as often as they change their Manolos.